Wow, you scared me. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Ledbetter, publisher and editor-in-chief of the new VW Trends magazine. Here today, I'm so excited about this interview. A longtime friend from, gosh, I can't even remember the first time we met. It's like one of those.
I can tell you.
It's one of those.
I can tell you the funniest time we had, though.
Oh, I know. Oh, yes, I know which story you're going to tell, and we'll get to that in just a second. Anyway, so excited to have Dyno Don Chamberlin on the interview. What would we call this? The interview barstool or
barstool, yeah,
something like that. So, Dyno, right off the bat, let's just get this out of the way. Peanut butter, do you like it chunky or smooth?
Smooth.
And why?
No comment.
All right, we're not even going to go there.
Most of you out there know there's no comment on that either.
There's no comment. No
Actually,
comment.
when I had chunky peanut butter as a kid, and it was full of glass, so I've never had it.
Was it really? No, you're
seriously. Seriously.
Okay, so the take home from this is cautionary tale.
You get extras every time you buy extras, you know.
Check your peanut butter at the door.
Hold on, let me check mine right now. Okay.
So here's what I want to ask you right off the bat.
You just touched me.
It was in the contract. It's a safe touch.
Okay.
So how did you first get?
I heard that.
This is going to be a long interview. I can tell. We'll be here. Stay tuned.
Roll 'em.
For part 45.
Yeah.
So how did you first get into VWs?
Oh God.
If you say through the door, I'll slap you.
In 1958, I sat in my neighbor's 1953 split window, and I thought, wow. This is my kind of car.
And how old were you?
A little over 4 years old.
And you remember it?
I do, like now.
Wow.
Fresh.
Wow.
Black exterior with that beautiful sand brown interior.
Right.
The nice detent cushions in the back seat. All the nice bakelite on the dashboard.
Right.
Dude, it was something I'll never forget. Had the crotch cooler, you know. Vents
yeah. On the sides. Wow.
The 25 horse motor looked like my mom's sewing machine.
Right.
And it stayed with me ever since. So then we moved to California in '64, and I was right in the hub of the beginning of the Volkswagen movement.
Yes.
And I was right place at the right time, right place, for everything to be centered around where I became proficient at everything in Volkswagens.
Now, what was the first VW you ever owned?
1963 Pilot Junk, budget rent-a-car. I worked at a mobile gas station straight out of high school.
Yeah.
And I saw this blue Volkswagen. I said, well, I can't really afford much. They said, take it off our hands. I forgot what I paid, $300 for it.
Wow.
Had a nice rebuilt 1500 motor in it. So that was my first Volkswagen that I did everything on and learned everything on as a prerequisite for getting farther into the industry.
Right. So from there.
Oh, are you having fun yet? I am.
Yeah,
what about you, Dan?
He's having a good job. Okay. Yeah, he gets paid by the minute, so I'm trying to keep it short. But so you got your first car. Tell me how you got into racing it.
Well, how did I get? I went to all the bug-ins. I went to all the Volkswagen events as a teenager. I was 5 years behind everybody else. Most of the guys were the age of my older brother at the time.
Right.
But East Anaheim is where the focal point of the movement began. So I really, my first car was a 55 Chevy, which I street raced, and which ended up into, you know, the 63 Volkswagen in '71. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to Mexico with a friend of mine out of high school, and I thought, well, it'd be my time to try bracket racing with it, and so that's how I got into racing. I went to my bug-in '71, and
with a stock motor.
Stock motor. I think at that time I outran everybody. I was running 17 seconds with a stock 1500 motor.
Wow.
And by the end of the day, I had broken all three motor mounts. So every time I let out the clutch, boom, boom, boom. I didn't give a shit. I wanted to take the thing out and race it, and I did. I missed podium by 1/100th of a second.
Oh.
So then I came back the following year, made podium by 1/100th of a second.
Wow.
And then the culmination of these trophies, these wonderful pieces that were ruined in my storage recently, that I don't know how they came about, but you can see they're all falling apart, and you know, hallelujah. But anyway,
it's like owning a Volkswagen.
It is.
In a sense. It is.
It is, Dan.
So from the racing, like, how long did you race? How long did you actually bracket race?
Ooh, It had about a 10-year tenureship with racing.
Okay.
But from 71 to 75 were my premier years.
Okay.
Where I was very into it. I was the first person, actually second person to ever run the Cadron carburetor.
Yes,
which came out in
yes.
74 at Truhoff.
Right.
My friend Walter Kaczynski worked for Truhoff.
Single or dual port?
Single port.
Single port Cadron.
I had a single port 1600 that ran 15s, low 15s, almost broke the 14-second barrier with a 1600 single port Cadrons that achieved almost 42 miles to the gallon.
Wow.
My single port stock motor, I achieved 34 miles to the gallon. So,
And still bracket racing.
and still bracket racing. There's nobody to this day that I know that's ever achieved what what I did with that car.
Wow.
With that motor, the motor transcended to a 10-year racing companionship with me.
Right.
I had a friend of mine that I met in 1970 as a friend of mine, and I were going around Disneyland area in his hot rod, 1835 two-barrel carbureted car, and I hear this car pull up next to us, and the guy looks over and smiles. The light turned green, and he's got 48s, let's follow him. He pulled over to the side of the road, and we got to be really good friends with him. His name is Randy Jones. And long story made short, became very good friends. We did a lot of projects. I ended up working in his shop part-time. I also worked at Rudy Boom's Volkswagen Porsche repair before that, or after that. We're going back a few years. 71, 72, 73, and 74 were a really wild time.
Right.
And I got kicked out of my house when I was 16 years old, so I got to, I went to live on my own, and it was a real a tumultuous time.
Sure, of course.
And around that time, it was, the Vietnam movement.
Yep.
A lot of stuff going on in my life and other lives as well. So that's basically how it started.
Gotcha. So now, you told me earlier that you had the opportunity back in the day, you worked at Auto House.
Yes.
Now, tell me how you got in there,
Well,
and was that part of what propelled you into the racing, or
No. I was always a gearhead.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when my friend came back from Vietnam in the 60s, he bought a 64 Chevy Gasser.
Oh, nice.
And it ran low 10s.
Right.
Street car. Stripped, but street legal.
Right.
And we just, straight axle, it was bitching. And we drove it up and down Harbor Boulevard for the time he was on leave. Became very good friends. And that kind of stimulated me to kind of go in that direction. I just love the horsepower, the feel of horsepower.
Right,
Anything.
right.
I don't care if it's an airplane, a horse with 3 legs. I don't care what it is. So, what was your question? Folks, 3 hours of sleep in a week. I've got insomnia. I apologize.
He was very excited about this interview.
I was.
It's like keeping him up at night. So no, we were talking about Auto House and how you got got in there. That's
Okay.
This is like, I feel like the two guys in the balcony on the Muppet Show.
Shall we smile? No.
No, we don't want to smile. We'll save that for the end.
Okay. Should have a retainer, but I've lost 3. I'm not getting another.
That's all right. How'd you get to Auto House?
Just finished up my 1600 ported and polished single port head motor with an Engel 100 cam. Left the shop, drove 5 miles with my friend Dennis. We pulled off to the side of the road to get a donut. True story. Across the street, I see this beautiful white oval window Volkswagen. Woo! And he started up, and we look at each other and says, "Why not? Let's go see what he's all about." So I sat at the red light, looking at him, throwing him some revs,
Right.
as if you could hear it. Couldn't hear it.
No.
Light turned green, and boom, I was gone. It was an 1/8 mile Banshee motor. It was a fantastic running motor,
Right.
for what it was. And I whipped his ass till about 78 miles an hour. And his claim, and I believe me, it wasn't on the cam. He was an Engel 140 cam.
Right.
You got to be $3 grand, $3,500 to get on the cam before the car goes anywhere.
Right.
So anyway, we pulled off the side of the road, and his friend Jim, nice guy,
Strapping young man.
strapping young man, walks out of the car first. My friend Dennis was freaking out. He said, "Oh," I said, "Follow me. This is going to be the most fun thing you've ever had in your life." So I built this guy up. Oh man, it's got 48s and blah 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 blah. Show me your motor. Okay, we looked at the motor, 48s.
Right.
Dennis is laughing so hard, I could see his body moving, but he didn't want to show laughter.
Of course not.
And so they said, what are you running? I go, stock 1600. You're right. So basically it was basically with a cam and heads, basically other than that, just had a lot of goodies in it.
But you just tore him up.
I tore him up. So as a result from that, I found out he worked at Auto House. His dad owned the store.
Oh.
So I got a job from there and made a lot of friends in that really short time period. But that's basically how it started.
Wow, wow. Now, how did you get into this? Is something I've never asked you, and I've always wanted to, and I'm glad we have this time.
I am single. No.
Oh, you are? Okay, good. Thank you. I was concerned because
I have 3 beds.
I've been stalking you on Facebook, but that's a whole nother story.
That's you? Okay.
Sorry. Car detailing.
Yes.
How did you get into that? I knew you did it, and I knew you were actually during the 80s and 90s. We'll get into the announcing thing in a minute.
In the 70s, I worked at Miller Mobile Gas Station in Santa Ana.
Okay.
Right off the 5 and Main Street in Santa Ana. Right, I had a lot of jobs on Main Street. A lot of jobs on Main Street. But that was one of my best jobs because my boss would come in every day in the morning and say, I've never had anybody in 20 years of gas station come in to such a clean gas station.
Oh, wow.
So it was simpatico. Okay?
Right.
And he said, you can do whatever you want as long as my place is clean, the till is not jarred loose of any loose money, and nothing's missing.
Right.
So that allowed me to work on my car anytime, any place, anywhere I wanted in the facility.
Wow.
So that allowed me to get started in that direction.
So that's how you got started in detailing, but how did you get started?
I'm sorry, Dan.
No, that's...
3 hours of sleep, folks. I'm ready to go under. I can tell you a whole host of things that's happened in 4 years, but I won't bore you.
That'll be on the next interview.
Okay, but 3 years ago, no.
Yeah.
Detailing. So I worked with a guy named Bill Heisberger.
Okay.
Still around. And he was a lacquer paint specialist. And he worked specifically on 55, 56, and 57 Chevrolets, restoring them in the bay of the gas station whenever he had time. And I saw this big Sioux buffer that he had and watched how he worked it, and I said, well, it looks like a lot of fun. So he says, I'm getting ready to move out of here and move on with my life. Would you like to buy my equipment? And I said, hell yes.
All his detailing equipment.
I still have the buffer as I sit here today, and that thing's worth some big money.
Really?
But I won't sell it. It's just a part of me.
No.
That's how I got started. And then I went on later to promote myself and sponsor several race cars, Volkswagen race cars in the circuit. And so basically by doing that, that's how I built my small little business and ended up going basically over the country. People would fly me to come into town and detail their car for a weekend.
Yes.
So that's how. BAM!
So
Take 2!
Are you
Careful.
Are you going to do this?
Careful.
Are you going to do this every single time? Okay. All right. So after the detailing thing, you got into detailing cars. People would fly you out and do that. But I want to get to the part where I first came to know you when I got the gig at VW Trends back in '84, because you were already the voice of Volkswagen events. I mean, I would go to Sacramento, I would go to Phoenix, wherever it was, you were there. And that's how I first remember meeting you, was going to VW shows, and you were always the announcer. You were always up in the booth, and you were announcing the drags, or you'd go out and you'd talk to people at the car show. It was like you were literally the what would you call it? You were like the ambassador of goodwill for Volkswagens at those shows.
Thank you.
Well, you were, and it was fun because, to be completely honest with you, when I started emceeing shows for the motorcycle shop that I work for, I didn't know what I was doing. And I would think back to those shows, and it was almost kind of a WWDDC, like what would Dyno Don do? Or that would be D. What would Dyno Don do? So it'd be WWDDD. It sounds like something you spray on pot plants back in Vietnam or something.
Next.
But moving on. So when I started doing that, I'd be like, well, what would Don do? Because you were fearless, and that was one of the things I respected about you.
Thank you.
As an announcer, was you would have fun and you would just go off. And if you said something that was a little off color, you could always turn it around and use it to your advantage.
I tried.
So, and that's what I always loved the shows that we attended
You clean your hands?
No, they're not. Yeah.
Okay.
They're part. So, tell me,
ADD.
how did you get into being an MC, an announcer at these shows? Because here you are. Like, let's backtrack for a second. So you did the bracket racing. You were a car detailer.
Yeah.
You were obviously a Volkswagen fan.
Yes.
How in the hell did you get behind the microphone?
Well, in 1975, still working for Auto House, it was an honor for me to compete at the Volkswagen Bug-In because Auto House was a sponsor.
Right.
And at that time we had over 550 cars in my class alone.
In the racing class?
In my racing class alone.
Holy
550 cars alone. So back then we had to go 15 rounds of competition before you got anywhere. Okay? So here I was.
Wow.
From 71 to 75. I've now achieved Glorious Maximus.
Yes.
Making my way through car after car after car.
Right.
And now it came down to the finals of the day, overall competition eliminator, which was the top tier of anything you could do.
Right, right.
And I was in the lane, ready to go, watching everybody finish their categories, and it came down to me and a guy named Dave Andrews, who was sponsored by MP.
Okay, all right.
So they pull him out, he gets into the burnout box. I was doing a burnout, I put on my helmet, strapped in. The lane steward comes over and says, DQ'd, disqualified. What? To this day, I have never heard the reason why I was disqualified.
From that final match.
From that final match.
Wow.
So I stood behind his car with a couple of friends, and I said, one of these days, I'm going to be up in that tower, I'm going to make a difference for every racer out here that this will never happen again.
Wow.
To this day, I've never heard a reason why I was disqualified. So,
wow.
A few months go by, I got back in the stands and made as much obnoxious little boyhood that I could in the stands. Everybody loved it. I was more entertaining than the announcer in the tower.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
You know, they were listening to me, not the announcer.
Right.
And it was pissing them off because they could hear me over their announcing in the booth.
Right.
So then I was approached by Rich Kimball, and he said, how would you like to be the announcer at Bug-In? And I said, sure. So that transpired in 1976.
Wow.
So that's where I became an announcer, and it just took off
So
after
do you
that.
remember the very first gig you announced where you, I mean, because every time I've gone to a gig, I always have this little twinge of nervousness, or like, I really hope I don't suck too bad today. It's like, did you ever experience any of that kind of thing? Or?
I think many times when you come from honesty from the heart,
Yes.
it's secondary. You just do what you do, and you know this by now. You know this by now.
Yeah.
You get out there, the butterflies are gone, and you're just doing your shtick.
Right.
Excuse me. 3 hours of sleep, folks. Seriously, in 1 week. What do they call that? Insomnia.
Insomnia. Yes.
You don't want to know, or do you? Okay.
I don't want to know. I want to hear about your announcing it.
Okay, so my gift of gab was from all my experience that I had gathered from the Cadillac hub scene,
Right.
from a very young childhood age until I was in my 20s. And I knew all the entities, the highs and lows and the in-betweens of everybody that raced.
Right.
And so that made a good compilation.
Compilation.
Not compilation. Strike that.
That's
3 hours.
that's a whole nother video that'll cost you $19.95.
Okay.
All right.
So anyway, and everything else became secondary, and I learned how to use my honesty and my skills to portray the action behind the wheel
Right.
into the microphone segment.
Wow.
So basically, that's what happened.
Well, that and riffing off that a little bit, that was one of the things I think I admired the most about you, was your ability, because you knew all these people, so you could you know, kind of play off them a little bit, because
Sure.
you knew things about them, and you could play while you were on the microphone with them, and that's what made it so entertaining.
One of the striking moments was when Bear Barlow from Texas
Yes.
and Daryl Vitone would exchange driving duties on their cars, and I'd be in the stands going, Bear Vitone, or Daryl Barlow, or whatever, and the people would look at me, what the hell? And they finally got what I was doing,
Right.
and they loved it, because it played into the racing just the way it was meant to be. It was really great. Good times.
Now let me ask you this: as an MC or an entertainer, is there any one time, like, is there any one show that you went, man, everything about this show I owned. I nailed everything. I
think for me, the best time in that era for me was, I want to say Bug-In 25. It was the silver anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. All the great names of the Volkswagen industry were there under the roof.
Right.
And in the tower, when I took my break from the announcer to go up, to refreshment area, everyone was inside.
Wow.
And they all complimented me on what a fine job I did. They really took it to heart.
Oh,
you know.
Nice.
And so that meant a lot to me. At that time, I was looking at all my peers, because they were all older than I was, and they appreciated what I brought to the format.
Right.
So.
Well, now, one thing I've wanted you to, and please forgive me because I wanted you to do this.
I forgive you.
You don't even know what I'm asking yet.
Doesn't matter.
So.
Does it matter? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Can you still do the Dyno Don High C?
Count me down.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's with laryngitis. Try it again. Ba-ba-ba-bum-ba-bum!
There it is. That's what it was.
That's a real quick one, folks. A real quick one. Bam!
Yeah, I knew that was coming. That was part 3.
He wasn't ready for it.
So obviously the infamous Dyno Don High C was always, to me at least, a call to action. Like, because if something was about to happen, whether it be the bikini contest, whether it be some sort of announcement or something, that was...
Keep talking. Good.
We don't. You're petting my beard?
Just straightening it out.
No, this is natural roughness. It's roughness.
Okay.
I knew this was going to happen during this interview, by the way. All right.
Okay, good.
So the High C, how did you come about doing that? Or do you even remember? It just happened.
It happened in the early days. It was a true High C because I had done a lot of things with music. I did things with Dave Donato from White Tiger and Black Sabbath for quite many years, and my voice was very exercised.
Right.
So I could go a true High C octave, which not many people can do. So when they say High C, it's not really High C anymore, but it's the essence of.
It's kind of an F minor.
It's a F minor.
That's that's it.
It's like a minor F. Okay.
So that was just part of your shtick, was that you would have this.
I just did it, and people loved it, and I said, "Well, that's it." And that was it. And I don't know when it happened. Obviously, I think it happened at one of the Bug-Ins when I lost my voice, and I had to do the whole event like Wolfman Jack. Yeah, everybody, I had to get into my Wolfman Jack because I couldn't. My voice was wiped. I had what do you call it, laryngitis.
Oh.
He says, "Well, no voice, no money," and I went into Wolfman Jack for the whole event. People didn't know what the hell was going on until they realized I had no voice. That was the only octave I could go was -20. And
Wolfman Don. I like the ring of that.
Thank you.
That could be a new venue for you.
It could be.
Now, tell me about some of the events that you've been to. Obviously, Southern California and Arizona, heavy. Like you and I have also met at a couple different events across the country.
Many events.
Many events.
I actually have done. I went NHRA Division 7 every race that we could with the Berg family in I believe it was 1974, and one of the greatest moments I had back then, of course, was celebrating the World Finals when Gary got first place and was a World Finalist, and I was on the podium with them. But prior to that, walking through the pits, listening to everybody say how this Volkswagen annihilated them, and they were so embarrassed that this Volkswagen was 60 foot them, and they didn't want to be a part of that.
Right.
So that was a crowning glory in itself. I forgot your part of your question, though.
Oh no, that's fine.
3 hours of sleep, folks. Really?
No, it was basically just talking about the different events you've been to across the nation.
So and then from there, I was approached by a lot of promoters. And one of the coolest events I went to at the time, which was Bug Out back in Manassas, Virginia.
Yes.
One of the funniest moments in my life and yours.
Here it comes.
Dan Ledbetter, Dyno Don. go to Bug Out.
Yes, in
And
Manassas.
we see the food, and it said world's best chili. Let's have some chili. You remember that?
We did, yes, I do.
So what happened?
I was hoping you didn't.
There was two people sitting down at this picnic table. Dan and I sat down, and we started talking, eating our chili at the picnic table until these two people got up. Next thing you see, these two bowls of chili fall off the table, flying through the air like Superman.
The table Indo. The table Indo. We
had chili from head to toe, and I turned to Dan and I says, well, if it wasn't, it's world famous now.
It was. I remember that. Like I had forgotten about it.
We both had to go back for a change of clothing because we were drenched.
We had chili all over. So it was a very chilly day.
Flying chili.
And I'm surprised we didn't get hit by that picnic table, to be honest with you, because it flipped. I mean, Don and I were down on the end, and it was one of those ones that have kind of the U-shaped seating, like the old school ones.
Yeah.
And it was like a teeter-totter. We had people that said, but we had no idea when they got up, and this thing just went boom. We're on the ground. We looked pathetic. It was like I think someone gave us $1, like to go buy some booze or something. But yeah, that was one of the most amazing things. So we've actually, Don and I have had a history of like meeting up in strange locales. Thank God only one of them was a chili incident, which was funny though. It
two
was
Zane masters.
yeah, which was different than two Xanax masters, which is a whole different deal altogether.
Yeah.
So how did it go from you being the voice of VW in America?
Yeah.
How did you start going over to like the European bug-ins and the European shows, and how did that all transpire?
Okay, Keith Soom wrote the California Lookbook, introduced me into that European segment.
Oh, okay.
I was approached by Cobus Cantrain from Belgium at Lenny's shop in Fullerton, West Coast Classics.
Yes, yes.
He says, how would you like to be the announcer at my new event? And I said, what would that be? He says, European Bug-In. I says,
wow,
great. And that's how it started. And that's been, I can tell you, 12, 14 years back now.
Yeah, it's been
They have it every 2 years.
Right.
But that was a good crowning glory moment for me because they had a lot of Europeans that, have read till they're blue in the face American journalism.
Right, right.
And of course, I've probably been documented more than any other Volkswagen personage in the scene, and so it just worked out that way. But I've traveled many different countries. Because I started buying and selling Volkswagens and selling them to Japan, England,
Yes.
Belgium, all over the world.
Yes. Now that was mid '80s, early '90s, correct? That was when we saw a large contingency.
Yeah, I started in the '70s, shortly after announcing when I met my friend Akira Ueno from a bee house in Japan.
Oh, okay, all right.
And so at that time, all the big engine builders were building hot rods for guys who were going, I can't drive the damn car.
Right.
Because it's 5 miles or 5 minutes and they would overheat.
Right.
So that was my big thing. I would ask the seller for a commission, and I'd tell the buyer I'd like a commission. It was a good win-win.
Win-win.
I didn't have to mark up the price. I didn't have to score any bonus points. And every car I got, I detailed before I sent it out, so it was fresh.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
so I had the best of both worlds.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So now, when you went, what was it like your first European bug-in? It almost sounds like a Chevy Chase.
Oh my God!
I can only imagine what transpired.
Well, first of all, let's just say the Europeans are not conservative,
really?
like Americans.
Is that where this picture of you came from? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture or if you can see it, but it's a picture of Dyno in front of.
I am naked.
Is this a '67?
That is Gary Berg's '67 Volkswagen right there.
Dyno is
1220s on the street.
Dyno is completely naked, hiding his
appendage,
his genitalia with a frisbee.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into frisbees, by the way.
Thank
right there.
God.
So
well,
it worked out very well.
At least you weren't throwing that thing around.
Yeah,
anyway.
no. So tell me about going to Europe for the first time. Like, were you? I would think mastering American soil. Like you were the voice of VWs over here. I know it's a different scene over there, but not really. It's just the same. You just
People are people, cars are cars.
yeah.
And all I had to do was be me. And the first event, however, was, I'll just say kind of chaotic, because there were no holds barred. There was some crazy shit going on. I mean, we were doing, the buses at the time that came over from England that took the Channel, okay, to make the event. These guys were 10, 11, 12 Second Street buses.
Right.
And they were just doing burnouts, donuts, anything we could. I mean, food you!
You didn't do it. Bam! All right, so we were talking about this.
He's really not farting. He's not.
No, I'm not.
It's seats.
They can't.
Vinyl seats,
they can't
folks.
hear. Yeah, sure. That's what I tell people. I think it's called irritable bowel syndrome.
Next.
So we were talking about Dyno's first European bug-in.
Yeah.
Which sounds a lot like a Chevy Chase movie.
Yeah.
But, so you were talking about the buses doing the burnouts, and like, it was just crazy.
Yeah, but prior to that, I went to England before that, years ago, in
okay.
'96.
Not for announcing.
Yes, for announcing, and I at that time I did some events for Brian Burroughs,
Okay.
which is the largest promoter in all of England for Volkswagen events. And I think that's pretty much what shooed me into do the European event in Belgium. But yeah, it was off the hook. Off the hook. They were freaking out because people were just. It was insane. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Well, like what? Tell me more.
If you can imagine hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people screaming around like the Three Stooges,
Really?
with no rhyme and reason to anything going on at the event, just having fun. Having fun, good legitimate fun.
Like a 12-year-old at a carnival.
Look, you could pee on as many feet as you wanted to, and nobody would even care. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Not that I did that, but I'm sure I peed myself a couple times. But yeah, it was off the hook, and the promoters were extremely happy with how the event went.
Right.
But of course, since then they had to detune it because it's a family-oriented show now. So
of course.
Anyway.
I know now everybody's getting older, and it's a good thing and it's a sad thing. I know it's horrible, but it's one of those things where it's interesting to see where the industry was. Like when we brought VW Trends back, we were going through and saying, well, what can we do and what shouldn't we do and things like that. And it really has this new generation of people coming into the scene. It feels like it's really altered the movement, because you could do anything in the 80s and people loved it. It's like
60s, 70s, and 80s.
huge, big hair bikini contests, all that stuff.
What kind of changeover for me was in the 80s, because pardon this, but
sure.
As a magazine guy, you had to cover mini trucks and all that garbage,
No, we never.
Sorry,
we never covered mini trucks and VW Trends. We had Mini Truck magazine. Okay.
So, a Volkswagen guy, if you're a Cal Looker guy,
right.
For me, speaking for me, I'm a truist. I'm not into Coke bottles and stuff on the car. I'm not into Slam-A-Dam, not into patina.
Right.
I can appreciate you as an owner for having it, because honestly, when I was your ages, I couldn't afford a decent Volkswagen either, so I did what I did.
Right.
From that standpoint, love you, appreciate you, but not my thing. I'm a purist.
Right.
This turns me on. Not just me, but the car. I did look pretty good. I still look that good.
You still look
that good.
Yeah.
Now that I've been throwing up for 6 weeks. But anyway, no, those the times were changed, and they brought in multicolored paint schemes and
the whole graphic thing.
The graphic thing changed. So you go from a purist to an enlightened stage, if you will.
Certainly.
And so that whole era, after Bug-In ended, I started doing the VW Nationals for 5 years, which was the largest payout ever recorded in Volkswagen racing history.
Yes.
Racers were happy. They can make $1,000 you win a race.
Yeah.
Not $50, not $100 that promoters pay now.
Or a T-shirt.
Or a T-shirt, and hey, we'll see you next time. So anyway.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So now, out of the European bug-ins.
Yes.
Like, has there been any? Have you gone to Japan? Have you done anything like outside of the UK? Like, has there been?
I have traveled extensively around the globe. Primarily announcing was England, Belgium, all of California.
Right.
Back east, I've done the world's largest East Coast show was Winter Jam.
Oh, okay.
Back in
Yes.
2010.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
Now I still do the largest East Coast event, which is held in New Jersey.
Right.
By the, well, next segment I'll have a little plaque for you. The Central Society, guys, I'm sorry, strike it. 4 hours of sleep, honest to God. But anyway, yeah, I still do 2 of the largest shows, and
nice,
the
good.
European Bug-In and the all air-cooled Volkswagen Gathering, which is held every year in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful family event, hundreds of cars, hundreds of people. It's a family-orientated event where everybody has fun.
Right.
You
Now,
know,
when is that event?
Coming up in September, I want to say.
In September.
September,
okay.
October-ish.
Very good.
Could
So
be
you're
wrong.
going to be going out to that.
Well, here's the deal. I'm getting older, and my health has suffered tremendously the last couple, 3 years. I've had a lot of trauma happen to myself, and traveling is not what I look forward to, to be honest with you.
It's tough. It gets tough.
When you're traveling 10, 12, 14, 18, 22 hours on an airplane, and with my Parkinson's and ADD and ADHD and a host of other all that crap,
EIEIO, whatever, all
playing
that
on
stuff.
this thing, it's really hard for me personally
Sure,
anymore.
of course.
So I'm very selective what I do. I've been doing the East Coast air-cooled gathering show for the last 10, 12 years. I look forward to doing that because that's a 4 or 5 hour flight, not too bad. Europe is getting tougher and tougher because that's a minimum 12-hour flight. And
Right.
then my body clock is like this. With insomnia, wrapped up into that, I got to deal with constipation. I got to deal with lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, lack of everything else because you set me free. You don't have to feed me.
Right.
I go non-stop with no food, no drink, nothing.
Right.
Matter of fact, the last 3 events I did in Europe, I missed breakfast and lunch. I just did my thing.
Oh, wow.
And now people said, "Hey, have you had lunch?" What are you talking about? Hey, I got free lunch waiting for me. I mean, you know, a wonderful, wonderful lunch.
Right. But you worked right through it.
Didn't have anybody to take my hands here, Dyno Don, you know, go do this. I'm just swept up in what I do.
You need a personal assistant.
You need a personal assistant. Yes.
That's exactly, I think, is what you need.
Yeah, I need that.
Well, it sounds like you've got, I mean, honestly, this is what's so great because, I mean, I knew you back in the day, like in the early 80s.
Small car specialties.
Small car specialties.
Yeah,
That's my alma mater right there.
Yeah.
The showdown.
Those
back then
are
in the
awesome
days.
events.
Great events, and you know, I hope that we see more events like that. That somebody kind of bring that energy and that vibrance
You
and
know,
that feel.
to be honest with you, this world is getting so stupid with political correctness.
It is.
I'm scared to
It
death. I'm scared to death to go anywhere and say boo to somebody for
Right.
fear they're gonna, you know, double up on me, and I gotta
Yeah.
protect myself.
I know.
I mean, you know, I have a lot of self-restraint, and I got some real asses in my life that come out of the shower head once in a while, and it's really tough because I'm a good guy and I'm a pacifist, not into violence, but I can take care of myself.
Well, of
all my
course.
friends have stories that they're now telling me about from years ago that I don't have a clue. A friend of mine a friend of mine from DZK in the '70s just called me the other night. Do you remember a guy that ran you off the road as we were caravanning, and you got out of the car and you karate chopped him in the head, knocked him to the ground? And I go,
No.
you know, but I mean, I can handle myself, folks. You know, I've been boxing and do a little karate, do sparring. I worked out with a lot of good people in my life, and I don't do it for awards or accreditation. I do it so I can take care of myself. And you give me a wet paper bag, it's still going to look the same way it did when you gave it to me.
Right.
But I'll put some effort into it at least.
Wow.
Yeah. Bam.
That was horrible. That was like,
Bam.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So you were talking about karate chopping a guy in the head.
Karate
in
kicking
the
him.
head.
Right? Karate kicking him.
A lot of people don't know that you are a martial artist.
No.
We already talked a little bit
Boxing.
about your musical stuff.
Yeah.
It sounds like there is a kind of this onion that is Dyno Don Chamberlin, that there's way more to it than the outside layers that we see at the Volkswagen shows or in the magazines.
A lot of people do not know that for most of my life I've been an accredited ufologist, and a paranormal researcher. I started doing this at a very young age.
So ufologist, that's a UFO, unidentified flying object researcher.
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
I saw my first UFO in 1965 in August. Flew over my house in Anaheim. It was actually documented by a guy named Rex Heflin in Santa Ana. And from that point on, I've seen things and gone all over the world, especially my Volkswagen group. There's a lot of people that have seen stuff. And also paranormal stuff, you know, stuff you can't explain. There's a new show on called Skinwalker Ranch, which is, you need to dial it in.
Really?
Next season, Skinwalker Ranch.
All right.
This is true stuff. This is not hoaxy. This is not stuff. If you don't believe it, you don't have to. I'm telling you, it's real. Aliens have been here. They are here. I've got people in the medical community that have confirmed that they've worked or had beings in their hospital facility at one or another time. You know, it's an accumulation of many different stories. When you talk to one person, it ties to another person, ties to another person.
Right. It's all connected.
That's basically where I'm coming from. I come from factoids.
Right.
Okay, and most of my adult life, I've gone over and researched and documented a lot of stuff that I've done throughout my life.
Right.
And so, you know, for me, I know it exists.
Wow, that's fascinating. See, that was something. It took 30 plus years for me to find this out about.
Where from again? Okay.
Just as long as we're not doing any no other probing, ladies and gentlemen. So now let's go back to the music thing for a second, because I do want to talk about your martial arts. So the music thing. So did you play an instrument, or were you just singing, or like what's your give me your musical?
I started off playing accordion, and I played trumpet.
Hold it. You too? No. You really played an accordion.
I was a qualified accordion player. Moved into trumpet, played drums, played guitar.
Wow.
Played harmonica. Most people know that I play harmonica, and damn it, I didn't bring it today.
Oh my God, that could have been great.
That'd have kept you
next time
excited. So yeah, I do a lot of things. What people don't know about me is I've got really bad ADD, ADHD, dyslexic. I've kept all this stuff in my life to myself.
Right.
And people that don't quite understand what that is, research it on your own. But names, numbers, dates, places, don't remember. I'm horrible in math.
Right.
Remembering dates and places, horrible. I can remember an event, but I couldn't tell you when it was.
Oh.
So yeah, dealing with numbers is really tough for me. Always has been.
Are you good with names?
I suck with names, Ted. Frank, sorry.
That was a setup. I set you up for that.
But
no, thank you.
Faces, you know this. Faces,
yes.
But from doing events, I know faces. Names, it's been tough. It's been very tough. That's been the hardest hurdle for me in my whole spectrum of doing Volkswagen or anything else I've been a part of.
Right. So now tell me, let's talk a little bit more about the music thing, because obviously you brought that picture of... who is that again?
This is Dave Donato.
Dave Donato from White Tiger. And White Tiger was big back in the 80s. And then he moved on to work with Black Sabbath.
Actually, he did the only quickest singing time of Black Sabbath than any singer in history. I think it was one day.
Oh, really?
But he hooked up with Mark St. John.
Yes.
Who was probably
who played with
Kiss. Was probably the most accredited guitar player that I was ever around. My friend Keith Ranch was the guitar tech for him. He turned me on to Mark and his playing abilities, and so I went to a lot of their behind sessions, sat in and just had a great blast with everybody.
Now, did you play with them, or did you sing
not so much.
them,
I was not that good. No, David and I had sing-offs.
Oh, did
and
you
he was
really?
so pissed because I was so good. I told you I exercised my voice.
Right.
Not now, but back then I was doing 38 to 42 plus events a year.
Oh my God.
That was like
so your voice was...
It was spot on.
You were on fire.
Spot on fire.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's talk about some of the other stuff that maybe people don't know about you. Like what other dirty skeletons do you have in your closet? Like let's talk about the martial arts thing, because we never really talked a lot about that. Number one, how did you even get started in that? And how far did you, are you a black belt?
I can't tell you, Dan, I have to kill you.
It's CIA listed.
I never got into. I had friends that I worked out with growing up.
Right.
I was a boxer growing up. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I got my teeth knocked out when I was 7 years old by a 14-year-old bully when he was standing next to me at the Little League baseball game and said, "You know what? I don't like you." Bam!
Wow.
Hit me with an
Elbowed
elbow.
you.
Broke my face wide open. Lost pints of blood. Ruined my life for many, many years because my teeth were
Right.
all over the place. So karma came back later when he worked on a car and it crushed him to death. Thank you.
Wow.
Karma.
Car.
So karma.
Karma.
So I remember having my first boxing match in junior high school.
Like with the gloves. Like.
No, this was bare fist knuckles.
Oh, this was a fight.
I had a friend of mine that was sizable. Okay. His name was Alfie, and he was a school bully. And I thought for sure this guy's going to whip my noodle at the end of the class. There was probably 75 to 100 people surrounding us in the neighbor's front yard across the junior high school. Well, let's just say at the end of the fight, I never got hit, and he quit because he couldn't lift his arms. I had beat the guy to such a bloody pulp for a week.
Really?
His arms were massively black and blue and purple.
Oh,
all I did was jab. All I did was jab. Threw a jab. Threw a jab. Right cross. You know, every once in a while, you know, I was scared of the guy because he was huge.
Right.
And if he would have hit me, I would have gone 10 feet over end over end.
Right.
So I kept my distance. And in martial arts, you learn to keep your distance because if you don't, you're going to get smacked good.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys now that have that reach.
Right.
Reach is everything. So that was.
Now, what martial art did you practice? Was it jiu-jitsu? Was it taekwondo? Was it karate?
I'm American Kempo, but I've done a little bit of Shotokan.
I have no idea what that means.
Sorry, I've done about 3 to 4 different styles with friends that had worked out that I grew up with.
Okay, all right.
And one of the greatest moments was in 9th grade. A friend of mine had a birthday party, and my friend Glenn, who's no longer with us, we brought in an 18-inch block of ice. He came down.
Oh, doing the fist like woo, busting the ice.
Nothing happened, so everybody started laughing. Well, I knew better. It takes a while.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
I'm standing right next to the block, and I started to scream, "Everybody look!" And this ice block just fell to the ground in crystal pieces.
So it's like one of those time delay things. Like it's like the punch, and you go,
yeah.
"Oh, that didn't happen," and then all of a sudden it just crumbles in on it.
Yeah, and sometimes when you get hit, it's delayed. You don't
Right.
feel the punch till seconds after that. So discipline is very important, whether you do boxing, martial arts, wrestling, which I did a lot of.
Wow.
My good friend when I grew up was Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who's no longer with us. Kevin Costner was a friend of mine.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
Really?
when I was 15 years old, Kevin Costner for a year, we hung out together.
Wow.
And that was one of the greatest times of my life.
Have you ever talked to him since?
No.
Would he remember you? Like if you called him?
He knows somebody in my family, yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's
yeah,
pretty
it was
exciting.
I never forgot the name. When he started making movies, I went, wow, that's got to be the same Kevin Costner I know.
Wow.
As it turned out to be, it was. We played baseball at the same time. Oh, what else you don't know? I still hold the East Anaheim baseball Babe Ruth record for the highest scoring no-hit shutout that I pitched.
Really?
22-0. The score has never been rivaled. There's nobody has beat my record.
Wow.
And I was back in
amazing.
1968 or 69.
Okay. So you said you had someone special you wanted to do a shout out to?
Yes. You know, there's a friend of mine that is a former Mr. Buggin participant, and he's been a good friend of mine for years and a good friend to many people. He's having his birthday come soon. I don't know if COVID's going to ruin it or I'm going to ruin it because I can't attend because of my health. And his name is Scott Worm Blades. Happy 60th birthday! Ba-ba-ba-bum-ba-bum! Love you, buddy.
Wow. So that you don't get many video shout-outs, especially from the new VW Trends. So that's it. Are you dying? What are you doing?
Oh, just testing.
Oh, okay. So, Dyno, thank you so much. This has been...
Thank you, guys.
This has
been...
Thank
you, Dan.
Please, you did all the hard work. I just got to sit and bask in the joy of what you do. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
This will be coming out in our next issue. And this has been great. Maybe we can do this again.
Buddy, always. Pleasure's mine.
Awesome.
Thank you for the phone call.
Thank you, Don.
Bye, everybody. Love you. Peace.